Sadistic Penguin Studios presents the At the Show podcast with Tom Yumper Garcia.
Okay, you people sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning. And if we're not back by dawn, call the president.
And Tony Tulsa Burt.
I don't know this industry jargon, YP, MP, whatever, okay? All I know is that I cannot get a record contract. We cannot get a record contract unless I take these tapes.
It's almost time, so grab a drink, get your popcorn ready, and join the film discussion with two guys from Chicago talking movies.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the At the Show podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Tom Yumper Garcia, and I'm with my other co-host, Tony the Sugar Baggy Burt. How you doing, my man?
Doing really good. Excited to be here today. How are you?
I am very, very good, my friend. Very good. It's a nice Sunday afternoon, even though it's pouring, but nice long weekend to recharge the batteries and watch some movies and some baseball. Yes,
lots of movies, lots of baseball.
Yeah, a new film came out this weekend in the Furiosa with the Mad Max prequel, which we are both looking forward to seeing. Hopefully we can see it this coming week, maybe.
Yes.
And, you know, a lot of cool stuff coming. And the summer blockbusters are around the corner, my friend. And one of the movies we're talking about today is probably another summer blockbuster that gets mentioned a lot.
Just really honestly, when you think about 80s classic comedies, I mean, and action and summer blockbusters. This has it all.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But with Tom, let's go into our normal shake of things and let's get into what we've been watching this week, my man.
All right, let's do it.
That's a me. And also, what were you just watching?
So what you been watching this week, my man?
It's hard to pick what I just seem to be with the wrapping up of the ending of school. We watched quite some movies this week. As I texted you, we watched that remake of Annie, which was blood-curdling, exhausting. I watched Glory Road, watched quite some movies, but tried to pick into some things that I watched that were a little bit more enjoyable than. I even dug back because we recently talked about a little Get Shorty with the Elmore Leonard. I try to watch Be Cool for the 10th time and give it a shot, and it did not work. But the movies I did watch were starting off was Out of Time with the one Denzel Washington, also with Eva Mendes, directed by Carl Franklin, a mystery thriller film. Definitely enjoy this movie because of the way the locales look. I really enjoy this particular scene that I'm about to play right now, which shows just a really awesome kind of the way it is filmed. Actually, I always remember that from the trailer. That's what kind of got me into watching this movie, and because it was Denzel. And definitely enjoy this movie because honestly, the cinematography is great. Denzel always does a good job, and I like the thriller mystery aspect of it. You ever see this one?
Yes, I have. Anything with Denzel, I'm a big sucker for, so I will definitely watch anything with him in it.
And then moving on here is a movie with Michael Keaton, because Michael Keaton is going to be in another summer movie coming up later in the summer that we're going to be talking about in great depth. Some awesome plans and Beetlejuice too, but this Clean and Sober that he is in, just an amazing movie, which I'm going to get to what it's about in a second. But here's a great scene with him and the one and only Morgan Freeman.
You got a problem, Daryl? You don't even know you got a problem.
Honestly, the movie, I could watch it every single time, and the movie has hit me pretty deeply. It's pretty much at the beginning of the movie, he's partying with some girl and they go to sleep and she doesn't wake up the next day. and he kind of like goes on the run and decides to check himself into a clean and sober type of facility where Morgan Freeman works. But the reality is he doesn't really want to be clean and sober until reality starts to hit him and he becomes mixed up in all this different stuff. Really shows, again, Michael Keaton can play comedy and Michael Keaton can play drama really, really well. This is an excellent example of that. Have you ever seen this one?
No, I have not seen Clean Sober, but I'm sold just on the cast alone. So I would definitely check it out.
Honestly, any person who is struggling with anything, and I mean, honestly, it could be anything, and you just want something that could make you watch something and make you go, oh, maybe I should just rethink something. This always makes me, this is a really good one. And the performances, as you stated, by all the actors, even, as you go deeper a little bit into the cast, as you stated, really awesome performances. Emmett Walsh is a great, great actor, and he does a great job in this. But like, as I stated, Morgan Freeman, even seeing him in an earlier performance, because for me, I thought he was just kind of coming onto the scene in Shawshank Redemption, but he's got quite a couple performances before that. And I like to look a little bit deeper, and that's what I try to do tonight. So yes, or today, because it's not tonight.
It's a force of habit, my friend. Force of
I
habit.
know. But what have you been watching here, my man?
So my son has recently got into the Avengers and Marvel live action. He watches a lot of the cartoons and Legos. Recently, he wanted to watch the more live action films. So we started off with Infinity War, and we eventually ended with Endgame. And he really likes Endgame, even though it's kind of depressing. And really isn't that much action in the film until the later part of the film, which is surprising because it's more story building. But we finished Avengers Endgame for the second time a couple days ago, and he's really, really enthralled with it. So now it kind of makes me excited because with a new Avengers phase, I think 6 or 7 coming out, the new phase of Marvel's studios, and supposedly they're supposed to be more in depth and like the original films that came out from Kevin Feige. This, makes me think that I can take him to the theater to watch the live action one. So I was really excited about those.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, so, I mean, I know Avengers has been out for a while, but it's something that we started getting into with him, so I'm really excited for that. And then the other film I was watching has a little background to it. So I listened to a podcast called Astonishing Legends that's been around since 2014. It's done by two people in the film industry, both sound guys, and they do an excellent job of deep research. They have a whole team of 30 people that research their content and their stories, and they've done things like um Bloody Mary. They've done Resurrection Mary from Chicago. They've done the Annalise, the first person that was basically the Exorcist supposedly based on. They've done like things like that. A lot of on-site things now that they've gotten bigger. They've done a big expose on Amelia Earnhardt. Really, really well put together podcast. A lengthy one, but very, very well put together. So I started listening to one of their earlier episodes, which is a 4-parter, and it's about the Mothman sightings in Point Pleasant. I listened to all 4 parts where they went over a bunch of incidents, gave both sighting effects of whether it's real or not. I mean, they give like clear, concise arguments for both sides, which is very interesting that for podcasts to do, to give both sides of the spectrum, while trying to remain non-biased, even though they have said that they are believers in the paranormal and etc. But it got me wanting to watch the Mothman Prophecies, which is off the book that they went over by John Keel. This film came out in 2002 with Richard Gere and David Engelberg. Very, very out there film, but after listening to the podcast and rewatching it, I really, really enjoyed it. Have you seen this film, Tone?
When it came out, the year it came out, we went and seen it, me and some friends, and we unfortunately, back in the day when a movie didn't like our pique our interest, we start to make jokes. But I've in the later years here went back and watched it a couple times, and I realized it's a more of a mature horror movie that is actually not bad. That I regret what we did a long time ago, and I wish maybe we would have just taken a little bit more serious. And I'd like to hear this podcast you're talking about, because very interesting.
Yeah, they're free for Apple. Like Astonishing Legends. If you guys haven't checked them out, check them out. Real big fans of them. They had, like I said, they have a whole team of people that do research for them, and there a lot of their other stuff is really good too. I just go through because they have so many episodes. Just go through what piques my interest. But this is one of the things that the moth they did a whole thing on the Mothman lore and history, and they go through a bunch of incidents that some of them were used for the movie here. Of course, they were Hollywood up, but it was written by a guy who was really big in this paranormal, John Keel, who did extensive research on this. And the film, I think, is a nice little representation of it. It's weird, definitely weird, but the whole story is weird. And it's one of the. It gives me like a bunch of like X Files vibes.
Oh,
Um,
I'm
and
always for
Keel,
that.
yeah, and Keel's work actually, influenced a lot of X File episodes. Uh, so I'm a huge fan of X Files. I know you are too. So that's what got me into wanting to watch these kind of films. But
Uh, and really quick before we move on, and another, I think, an underrated actor is Will Patton, who's in this
Mhm.
movie, and he pops up in a lot of good movies. And this is again another one. Richard Gere does a good job too.
Yeah, Will Patton actually an excellent reading voice too. He actually reads the film Doctor Sleep by Stephen King. He's the audiobook reader, the narrator for that film.
Really, I did
Yeah,
not
and
know
it's
that.
really good. Like he
I'm gonna
does an
dig into
excellent
that.
job. Yeah,
I
it's
could look
really
for
good.
that.
So if you have Audible, check it out. It's really, really good the way he reads it. But yeah, Will Patton, excellent, excellent actor. He's also in the horrible Punisher movie.
Very awesome.
Jen says she's seeing better because that's an ongoing joke. Every time she does something, I say I've seen better or tasted better. So, but you know, check out those films. This is what we watched this week. Let us know what you've watched over at the After Show Pod on the Twitters or X, or drop us a comment down in the YouTube comments at Statistic Penguin Studios if you're watching us live, or even on the podcast. You can leave us messages on the podcast as well. Just check in the description. There should be instructions on how to do so. So, Tone, it's good. We're gonna go straight into it. We're gonna go right into the meat and potatoes, as we say, of our main event today. We're gonna go into 1984's Beverly Hills Cop. When was the first time you saw this film?
First time I seen it was in the early '90s. Um, you know, Brian in the comments here a few comments ago, he stated here, he says, is the series is the Eddie Murphy one that he enjoys the least. It's a highly quotable film. For me, I've been really lucky to have been graced with, I had Showtime for a while, and then it turned into Paramount Plus. But in the last couple of years on Showtime, they have just played it a lot. And I probably haven't watched it probably 5 times before the last 3 years, and I probably watched it 25 times in the last 3 years. Honestly, it is, I like it a lot more now than I did when I was a kid. I'm more of a 48 Hours person, but it's got some good humor. I like a lot of the interplay between, I mean, there's nobody funnier than the chief of police in Detroit that is working with Mr. Eddie, which of course we will get to here in a little bit, but I think it's great.
Yeah, I same thing, Brian. Like you said, it was on 6 or 7 times when we were kids. Yeah, this is a movie that was on HBO. Like I've seen the sequels. I actually saw a third sequel with a in a drive-in. It was the first film that was played, and Needful Things was the second one. So,
But
you
like
know,
even Brian saying that, like
mhm,
honestly, can we could spend all day talking about movies that we saw as a kid, like Rookie of the Year,
mhm,
and now as an adult, I have a completely different opinion of it. I think it's flip flop too. If you watched a movie 6 or 7 times as a kid, but then you didn't watch it a lot, like I went to McDonald's every day in kindergarten, and then I didn't go again for 15 years. Now I'm liking McDonald's more than I
mm,
have in a long time. Sometimes you go and you go back and forth. But yeah, I'm agreeing with what everyone's saying here.
yeah,
Early Eddie Murphy was the best too. That's a excellent point.
yeah. Hopefully he has one of those resurgences, where he comes out of nowhere with some more bangers.
Now, did
Um,
you like the most recent Coming to America that they did for?
not no, not really.
No, it wasn't very good.
I try to. I love that film for the first film. It's probably one of my favorite films, comedy films that is, but
Me and Katie have watched Norbit probably more times than we should admit. So I don't
that movie's
know.
not bad. Norbit's not
That's a really
bad,
stupid. It's really stupid.
but, like, when I think of, like, bad, like, The Haunted Mansion wasn't really good. Pluto Nash was really bad.
But yeah,
I
yeah.
thought Bowfinger was good with him and Stephen
Yeah,
Martin.
it's
Uh,
it's it's funny.
it's got some funny parts in it, but like, he kind of fell off. I mean, Sandler has done the same thing where he has had good films. So it kind of just, come with something new, and hopefully this new one that's coming out, which is one of the reasons why we did this movie, was because there is a new Beverly Hills Cop 4 coming out, codename Axel F, and it releases through Netflix in the summertime. So I am looking forward to seeing how they, progress in the story.
It's interesting because I thought for a while, part two is really good. Part three is not very well, but
Mhm.
this one, hopefully, honestly, I think sometimes with the pressure and what's at stake, and I'm thinking it's got to be pretty good. I could be wrong though. J Lo just came out with a new sci-fi movie on Netflix that they're ripping to shreds. Not that J Lo comes out with good work, but Netflix is also like it's a hit and a miss. But we'll see.
Yeah. There's only 3 J-Lo films I think she was, well, 4, I guess.
What are they? Let's hear 'em.
Selena, Out of Sight, the the, um the movie where she's, the detective that goes into the Cell, and My Family.
I give her one more too.
What?
I love her a lot in Oliver Stone and U-Turn. If you've
Okay,
never,
U-Turn, yeah, I was thinking U-Turn, I'll give her that one too,
okay,
so 5.
5. There you go. Good.
I'll give her 5. That's, like
But, oh, hold on. 6. Anaconda. Can we squeeze that in?
Yeah, that's a classic. John
There
Voight
you
saves
go.
that movie,
Okay,
though.
okay. There we
John
go.
Voight. It's 'cause of John Voight. Enough was bad.
No,
Uh
really quick though, you're getting me off track here, but in Glory Road, John Voight does a really bad prosthetics face thing going on. He's like one of the coaches. If you've never seen it, don't
Yeah,
watch it.
I've seen it, yeah.
But this movie though, again, it seems to be, from everything I'm reading, they're getting a lot of the old cast back. Might be fun.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Billy Campbell plays such an incredible douchebag, scumbag. Yes, he does. But let's get into the development of this movie, Tone.
In my thoughts, I use the technique of positive visualization.
So, coming up with the story, Michael Eisner, or some say it was producer Don Simpson, whoever, it depends on who you ask. But Michael Eisner was a head of Paramount Pictures, and he came up with the film's concept in 1975. And he did this while driving an old station wagon that he first owned in New York City, around Beverly Hills. He was stopped for speeding on the freeway. The police officer treated him with condensation and basically was stuck up due to the condition of his vehicle. It made Eisner realize to the degree which status is measured in Los Angeles by what kind of car you drive, and he reportedly exchanged the station wagon for a Mercedes Benz the following day. Must be nice. However, he became dedicated to enshrining the event in a film about Beverly Hills and about a Beverly Hills policeman. In the coming years, Eisner remained dissatisfied with potential scripts until Daniel Petrie Jr. came on to rewrite it, who has never been credited as a feature film writer, but submitted his screenplay in September 1983. And like I said, some say it was Don Simpson who did this. It depends on where you get your source material for. I found both Eisner and Don Simpson as the people who have become inspiration for this film. Originally, the film was going to be called Beverly Drive, and it was about a cop named Ellie Axel from Pittsburgh. And the original script was written by writer Daniello Batch, who was forced to make changes, and people thought the script was very bland. It was kind of a cookie cutter script. So it was laid dormant. Fortunately for Simpson, Flashdance came out and it became a gigantic hit. And Don Simpson figured he wanted to make this film of Beverly Hills, this police officer, his next big project. The film was eventually rewritten again by Daniel Petrie Jr., who they hired on due to having some differences with Batch as his script was bland, as explained. Petrie's big contributions to the script were he changed the character's name to Axel Ellie, and he made him from Detroit. which he eventually became Axel Foley. They pitched the script to Paramount, and since with the rewriting script and new comedy senses inside there, they figured, yeah, let's roll with it. So let's finance the director. They offered one of the greats, Martin Scorsese, the role, but he turned it down because he felt the film was too much like Coogan's Bluff. They also offered it to David Cronenberg, who turned it down as well. And then they started looking at this director called Martin Brest, who was fired from War Games. If you guys don't know, War Games is his 1983 film with Matthew Broderick. You remember that film, Tone?
Oh yeah, I do. That's just recently Dabney Coleman passed away, and he's plays a role in that.
Yeah. Let's play a game. I always remember that from the film. But Brest was fired from the film. It was his second directing job, which is a no-no in the industry. So everybody in the industry thought he was damaged goods. Don Simpson, however, and another guy, I don't know, some guy named Jerry Bruckheimer, they disagreed about this. And the two Paramount executives continually called Brest and asked him to direct this film. He kept declining to direct it and eventually took his phone off the hook. Imagine that. Like, it's your second film. You got fired from it, and now you got two Paramount guys calling you, and you like take your phone off the hook.
No.
But the thing that made him decide to take it was he actually had a coin. He flipped it and said, if I landed on one side, he would say he would direct it. If I landed on the other, he wouldn't. Flipped it, came up on the side he wanted to direct, so he decided to direct it. Today, that coin is actually framed on his wall in his office, which I think is pretty crazy because this is probably one of his big break films. So with him out of the way, they now have a director in David Brest, who came out. This will be his second big major film going forward. They had to find a casting. So with Axel, according to Jerry Bruckheimer, they originally offered this role to Mickey Rourke, and they signed him to a $400,000 contract that held him to it. But while it was going through the development, Rourke eventually walked away and left. How do you think Mickey Rourke would have done as Axel?
Not the way this movie is. No, it wouldn't have worked like that. It would have been something a little bit different, I think. But no, it wouldn't have worked.
Definitely. So they went and got another guy who was on like a rise, probably one of the biggest action stars of all time, at least in the top 2 of the 80s. Sylvester Stallone was cast. Now, Sly is known as a writer, and he was kind of going through an ego trip during this whole thing. He gave the script a dramatic rewrite, removing all the story's humor and turning Beverly Hills Cop back into a standard action movie. In one of the previous drafts written for Stallone, the character of Billy Rosewood was called Siddons, Siddons, and was killed off halfway through the script during one of the action scenes. Stallone had renamed the lead character to Axel Cobretti, with the character of Michael Tarantino being his brother and Jenny Summers playing his love interests. Stallone has said that his script for the original Beverly Hills Cop would have looked more like the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan on the beaches of Normandy. Believe it or not, the finale was me in a stolen Lamborghini playing chicken with an oncoming freight train driven by an ultra slimy bad guy. If that doesn't scream Saving Private Ryan, I don't know what does. So producer Don Simpson did not get along with Sylvester Stallone, and he let it known that they didn't want to move forward with Stallone's revisions. Since Stallone wasn't willing to renegotiate the rewrite, Simpson asked writer Charles Chip Poyser if he could return to the script to the previous iteration, while leaving most of Stallone's characters' revisions intact. However, Poyser found this task and turnaround impossible. And according to co-producer Don Simpson, Stallone's new script spent too much time on the star soaping down his muscles. Told you, Sly was going through a ego trip here. Don Simpson would later tell friends a story impossible to collaborate, so this is all rumor, about he finally got Stallone off the project and got the project back on track. He and Stallone had a mutual interest in youth treatments, and Simpson knew of a Swiss doctor who was experimenting with injections of sheep hormone that increased tumescence. Simpson managed to get Stallone's name put at the top of the list, and Simpson boosted to a friend for an appointment with the very exclusive doctor. Stallone flew to Switzerland, and Simpson promptly continued working on Beverly Hills Cop without him. Now, Sylvester Stallone would say he left the project because he didn't think audiences would accept him as a fish out of the water cop who was new to the lifestyle of Beverly Hills. He also didn't like the inclusion of comedy because he felt he wasn't suited for it. Well, if you've seen Don't Stop Stop or My Mama Will Shoot, I would kind of agree with that to an extent.
Well, come on, Oscar. That's such a great movie. No, I'm kidding.
Oscar is way better than Stop or My Mama Will Shoot.
Well, like Stop or My Mama Will Shoot. What's her name? Getty is at least, as the mom. I mean, it's kind of like, I know it's not good. I'm not trying to defend the movie at all, but it's so stupid. It's like, okay. Whereas like him in this movie, he just, again, honestly, I would see Mickey Rourke more in it than Sly Stallone. But
yeah, and Brian says he's guessing Sly kept asking them to hire Frank Stallone for the soundtrack. It could have been, Brian.
No, before you go on really quick, honestly, if anyone out there has any time, read into this Don Simpson character and read into a lot of what he was up to behind the scenes. My geez, if you think the sheep injecting was something, this guy lived a life of lives to the point where Bruckheimer, well, he didn't want to work with them anymore. But that being said,
yes,
that's great. It's a great story you just told.
Yeah. So Stallone ultimately dropped out 2 weeks before filming was to start to concentrate on his next picture, 1984's Rhinestone, which was a classic. Stallone later used the bulk of the ideas as the basis for a 1986 film both me and you love called Cobra.
Yes.
According to Stephen Burkoff in a UK newspaper interview, Sylvester Stallone quit the film because of disagreements about the orange juice for his trailer. So there's all these rumors going around. Stephen Burkoff, who plays Victor Maitland in the film, the bad guy, said that he turned it down because of orange juice in his trailer. So we don't know if it's true or not. I have no idea. But he was gone.
He was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
So now that Sylvester Stallone is out of the picture, we go for considerations. And the people considered for the job were Jeff Bridges, Billy Crystal, Robert De Niro, Richard Gere, Mel Gibson, Gregory Hines, Michael Keaton, Nick Nolte, your boy Dennis Quaid, Kurt Russell, Arnold Schwarzenegger, John Travolta, Robin Williams, and Bruce Willis were all considered the part. It sounds like they're throwing crap at the wall and seeing what's going to stick here. They eventually offered the role to James Caan, as well as Al Pacino, Harrison Ford, and the late, great Richard Pryor, who all turned the role down. Luckily for them, there was this guy named Eddie Murphy who was involved in this other film called Ghostbusters. But he was offered the role for this film, and he backed out of Ghostbusters to do it. The shooting script was literally pasted together from many scripts. Like I said, it was something that kept going over and being rewritten for so many years that when they were stuck during filming, Murphy would just improvise dialogue or create a scene, which I think is hilarious and awesome. This shows the comedic genius that Eddie Murphy is. But now we have our Axel Foley, and to round out the rest of the cast, we have Lisa Ellenbacher as Jenny, Stephen Burkoff as Victor Maitland, who is rumored to hate this film, which I guess okay. Judge Reinhardt as Detective William Billy Rosewood. Judge Reinhardt also from one of my favorite films, Fast at Times at Ridgemont High.
Great.
You have Ronnie Cox as Andrew Bogomil, Lieutenant Andrew Bogomil. Also, Dick Jones. John Ashton as Sergeant John Taggart. James Russo as Mikey Tandino. Also, it's kind of funny that Russo's in this film with Reinhold, who, Russo was actually in Fast Times. You know what role he played?
Russo, wasn't he Damone? right?
No.
I'm sorry, James Roos. I'm
Yeah,
talking about. I'm still thinking back in my head here, really quick. He plays the robber in the movie, but
yeah, he's the robber. Yeah.
But I'm thinking back to an actor you said a minute ago, which Judge Reinhold, just
Yeah.
him in general. He's got this line in the Santa Claus that I love, where he goes, "You're taking this whole Santa Claus thing to a very unhealthy level." He says it to him like at the beginning of the movie, and there's something. Oh, and because earlier I was watching this, me and Katie had a huge Judge Reinhold conversation. So I'm sorry, folks. I'm in Judge Reinhold world. And in Clerks, the cartoon, if you've never seen it, he plays the judge. Judge Reinhold playing the judge, which is ridiculous too.
Yeah, he's a pretty funny actor. Brian says he heard they kept putting Sunny D in his trailer when it was specifically said in his contract that he provided with the purple stuff. Could have been. So James Russo is actually cast as Mikey Tandino. You have Stephen Elliott as Chief Hubbard, Paul Reiser as Jeffrey Friedman, who's in the early film, which I thought was pretty crazy seeing him in there. I totally forgot he was in this film. Bronson Pinchot as Serge, Jonathan Banks as Zach, also known from Breaking Bad fame. Michael Champion as Casey, Frank Pesci as a cigarette buyer, and then we have Gilbert R. Hill as Inspector Douglas Todd. He plays the boss of Eddie Murphy in Detroit. The cool thing about Gilbert R. Hill is that he was a real-life Detroit police homicide detective, and he later served as the president of Detroit City Council. So that's pretty cool. And then to round out, besides the comedy and the starstruck, cast, this film is actually known for its music, and Harold Faltermeyer composed the score for Beverly Hills Cop and the theme song Axel F, which would become a worldwide hit. Referred to the song as the banana and the exhaust theme because it was originally composed for just that scene when he pulls that prank. However, the theme was so loved and so fitting that it became the main theme of the film. And the Axel Foley theme was done with 3 synthesizers, a Roland Jupiter 8, a Roland JX3P, and a Yamaha DX7. So that's why you hear all the synthesizers in the film. Probably one of the most iconic movie themes to date. Would you say so, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, when you think to all of his 80s work, Eddie Murphy, I mean, I don't think of the music in Coming to America, Trading Places, 48 Hours, like I do of this movie. This movie music holds more than those movies.
Yeah. Yes, Brian, I was going to grab that, but I didn't have time. The Peter Griffiths version is brilliant. Yes. And another. Yeah, it's been parodied in so many things. Also, like I said, we talked about last week, Cuffs has its own kind of Axel Foley theme to it as well. So it's influenced a lot of things. But that is our film development. Really short for the film development, but the Sylvester Stallone stuff cracks me up just reading about it and going through it. A lot of funny stuff there. And like Tony said, Don Simpson, if you have time, read about Don Simpson. He is a very interesting character. Just for the fact that he told somebody that they have sheep hormone as a story, just tells you what kind of person he is. Be sure to read about him if you get a chance. Anything to add, Tony, about the development?
No, I mean, definitely interesting. Again, I'm going to be spending time just thinking of Stallone in this movie at all, especially Stallone when they go to the club or whatever, the strip club, which we're going to get to here in a little while. But imagining Stallone in that scene when he's just dancing with those, Stallone doing it.
Yeah, that part makes me laugh when he's like, Aidan Murphy's
That's the best. That's just
it's just fun. He's just shoulder shift. Shaking.
Well, it's a lot of couple things. I like his. Well, we're gonna get to in a minute, but his line where he's like, "It's the middle of summer." Are you supposed to be wearing a long jacket in the middle of summer? Just a lot of good dialogue in the script.
Yes, a lot. But let's get into the film breakdowns, huh?
Let's do it.
See the arc? He starts down here. He ends up here. Where's my arc, Paulie?
Right.
Yeah, one of the great opening scene with the
I
Glenn
always like
Fry.
it's like quiet and it's like
Yeah.
names. It's like boom, do do
Yeah,
do do do.
yeah, it just hits you out of nowhere. With the Glenn Fry's The Heat Is On. It shows opening scenes of Detroit in the beginning of the film, and one of the main reasons that the film ultimately began with scenes in Detroit is that the city is producer Jerry Bruckheimer's hometown, and he wanted to get a nice little shots of it. Even though when I was rewatching the film today, like a lot of the shots of the city are not really flattering. They're kind of like they make it look really bad. But I guess that's what he was going for in this, I don't know, to show it like more of a, I guess, being able to be compatible with the viewer.
Could be.
I don't know, but it was weird to me. We also see opening scene of Eddie Murphy selling cigarettes to two thugs, and he claims he's from Buffalo, and he's fighting over the money they're giving him. To where the police show up and they ruin the whole operation, and they chase them in the cigarette truck. To he eventually gets pulled over. They stop. Texas Avenger is the best obviously. He pulls over and they stop, and while they're this cigarette thing is going on, this deal is going around, they're getting chased. They're listening to the song of the Neutron Dance by the Pointer Sisters is playing, which this whole movie has such a great soundtrack tone. I know we talked about this earlier. And
that Pointer, that song that you just mentioned right there, I can listen to. The Neutron Dance.
Yeah.
Pretty good song when the Sox start winning again. That's the song they should play when they win it. Dun, 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 dun.
So what'd you think of him on the truck as you could obviously tell it's a stunt double holding on to the side, like flying around, and all these cigarettes are flying out. I like how the cop tells him before, like, "Don't we know you from somebody?" He's like, "No, I'm from Buffalo." And then the guy recognizes him when they point the gun at him when they eventually pull over the truck. We can go back to the police station. He's coming in. He's getting talked to by Paul Reiser as Jeffrey. And Paul Reiser is telling him, you're in trouble. The inspector's mad at you. And we first see his inspector, who I mentioned earlier, who was played by Gilbert R. Hall as Inspector Douglas Todd, yelling at him. And he says this.
Is that fucking Foley in here?
There's Todd. It's showtime, okay?
Hey, boss, I know what you're gonna say, but
You mind telling me where the fuck you come off going undercover without authorization from me? What the fuck is this all about? You wanna play some fucking bullshit cowboy cop? Go do it in somebody else's precinct.
Don't you want to hear my side of the story?
What's your fucking side of the story?
Let's hear your side of the story.
That line makes me laugh because it's just like it's such great comedic timing, and it's like this is like vintage Eddie Murphy. This is Eddie Murphy at his peak.
To get even again, as you just stated, the chief just to get that whole performance from him, and he's actually been a chief before, or worked in a police officer before. You're saying to yourself, I laugh every time at that part.
He does an excellent job.
He does, and if you continue the scene a little bit more, it's great. Because I always think of, sadly, when I think of Paul Reiser, I think of Burke and Alien.
Yeah.
But like he's still like standing by the locker behind him or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I was just getting something right here."
Yeah, this ain't my locker.
The whole scene, the way it is, the way it looks too. I like the way they make Detroit look, and then the way they make Beverly Hills look. So you can see one looks dark and dingy on purpose, and one is like, it's beautiful Beverly Hills. But as you stated, some of those things that they show at the beginning of the movie aren't really something where you're like, this is flattering.
Yeah, and like during this whole openings, even the walk through the police station, I got a lot. Like one of my favorite sci-fi films, RoboCop, and Dick Jones, who was the character Dick Jones, who's played in here by excuse me, by one of the characters in the film. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. I just mentioned him. Who plays Lieutenant in this film, Tone?
Oh, in this movie?
Yes.
The one who's in Total Recall, Ronnie Cox?
Yeah, Ronnie Cox. He also plays Dick Jones.
Yeah, and he also is the do from Deliverance. He's the one who plays the banjo. Yep.
Yes. But just like I got a lot of RoboCop feels, and I wonder if they pulled some of the way that it was shot in terms of the griminess of Detroit and the walkthrough of the police station
That's fair.
this film, because even when he's walking through the cop's locker room, I got that from it. Uh,
That's fair.
so
Like that.
just reminds you, I love like that little things like that, and like the little maybe they're playing homage if it was something like that in RoboCop. But I love that opening sequence of showing Detroit, and then we show him in the the officer station. So Foley gets yelled at. He gets told to send home. He has a really crappy car that he drives home in. And this is the first time we hear Harold Faltermeyer's Axel F played here. Like I said, again, it was supposed to be just used for one scene, but they loved it so much that they kept it for the whole film. Uh, the film, like I said, the theme in the film, you can't think of Beverly Hills Cop without this theme. And it's iconic, and we can go so much more into it, but it's a great theme, and we hear it here for the first time as he pulls into his house. And when he gets there, he sees his door open. Doing his cop stuff, checks, goes in, and he sees his friend Mikey sitting in there. Uh, and Mikey tells him he's just got out of jail, and you can see there's like some kindling relationship between the two. They go to a pool hall and a bar, where Mikey loses $100 to some guy who hits a corner shot that he said he wouldn't hit. Mikey also tells him he has bonds, that he has some German bonds that he has that are untraceable, and that he was working as a security guard. Now, the bar scene that they have, they're really, really lovey-dovey between the two. The scene at the bar where Eddie Murphy and James Russo brought out a mixed reaction for preview audiences. Some audiences laughed when the two characters expressed love for one another. The studio wanted Martin Brest to cut the scene out, but Brest resisted. Instead of cutting it altogether, he and his editors trimmed it down, even cutting out a few frames holding on Mikey as he says, "I love you." So they're just showing that they're old friends, they love each other, and they eventually walk back to Eddie Murphy's house, was apartment, to go in. They're both drunk, and we see a guy named Zach and another person basically hit Eddie Murphy, and he falls to the floor, and Foley's on the floor, and they grab Mikey, and Mikey's eventually killed. Jonathan Banks is the person who plays Zach, and again, you might know him from Breaking Bad as one of the main characters in there. Great character actor. And Mikey is killed. I call him Mickey. Mikey is killed, and in the scene where he's killed, the production was rushed out of that location. So if you notice when that scene when they're walking up the stairs, like Axel Foley kind of disappears, and then you kind of see him on the floor, but you don't really know why is he on the floor. Well, they're unable to get a shot of Axel falling to the floor after he gets knocked out. Martin Brest knows he regrets not getting the shot, as it confuses some people when Eddie Murphy just disappears. But you see him on the floor during time. Mikey gets killed. Foley, of course, talks to his inspector, who tells him he doesn't want him involved in this because he's too close to it. And he says, "I'm going to take a vacation." Now, where's he going to go? As him and Mikey were discussing earlier, Mikey was working in Beverly Hills, California with their friend Jenny. And he was working for a security guard job that she got him hooked up with. So we go to Beverly Hills, and we are shown scenes of Beverly Hills scenery to Stir It Up by Patti LaBelle. And right here, you see him driving down. He's looking at things in his crappy old car. He pulls up to a woman in a, I think they're in a Benz with her husband or boyfriend, and she's smiling at him, and he smiles at her. Totally Fast Time to Ridgemont High vibes when he's wearing the pirate ass costume, but she doesn't laugh at him. He laughs, and they drive off, and he goes to a hotel. And at this hotel, he gets out in his crappy car, and the guy's like, "Hey, sir, will you be staying here?" And he's like, "I don't know. Is this the most expensive place?" And he's like, "Not expensive for Beverly Hills." So he's, "Okay, I'll stay here." And he walks in, and we see him at the concierge's desk, Tone.
Yes, you have a reservation for an Axel Foley?
Well, let's see. I'm sorry, I don't see anything under that name.
Check Rolling Stone magazine's Axel Foley.
And he continues with this long, elaborate lie about being from Rolling Stone's magazine to the point where he starts screaming about him doing an expose on Michael Jackson.
I'd be the first one to get a room, and I'd be upstairs relaxing right now. But I'm not some hotshot from out of town. I'm a small reporter from Rolling Stone magazine that's in town to do an exclusive interview with Michael Jackson. That's going to be picked up by every major magazine in the country. I was going to call the article, Michael Jackson is sitting on top of the world. But now I think I might as well just call it, Michael Jackson can sit on top of the world just as long as he doesn't sit in the Beverly Palm Hotel.
And that whole thing is kind of like an inside joke because during that tirade that is going on, Michael Jackson sitting on top of the world for Rolling Stone, it was actually in real life a Playboy article ran on Eddie Murphy called Eddie Murphy is on top of the world, and it was published in January 1983. So kind of a dig at himself there. We find out that the hotel is $235 a night, but they're charging him a standard room rate because of his tirade. They gave him a suite. And how much is that in today's money? Well, in 2019, $235 a night was $630 a night in 2019. So that is ridiculous. But they give him a nice suite.
Yeah, that's the thing about him. I mean, in all of his movies in the 80s, he could talk himself into any situation, good or bad.
Yeah. I love that, he goes to get his checked in at the hotel, then he goes to meet his friend Jenny. As he's walking, he sees two white guys wearing Thriller gear, one in the black leather and one in the red, and he's laughing. The funny thing is, in Eddie Murphy's stand-up routine, Delirious, he actually wears the red leather suit that was released in 1983, and in his other stand-up comedy, Raw, he wears the blue one. So he's kind of making fun of himself again, like self-deprecating humor. And it just, Eddie Murphy with his late, his laugh, and like, it just makes me laugh, like the way he laughs. It's just like one of those unique laughs. And I can't help myself but laugh when he's laughing. But he arrives at the art gallery, and in the art gallery, he sees all these sculptures and these models and a large piece of art that contains, several figures. One of the figures I made D with a chain around his neck is one of the first things he sees. It's actually modeled after the director, Martin Brest, which I think is funny. And then we meet probably one of the best characters in the film that has a very, very limited role, but we meet the man Serge.
Is that what you said?
Pertaining, what it's meaning, regarding.
Oh, what's it regarding? I'm an old acquaintance of hers.
Danae? One moment. Don't run and tell me, Summers, that Mr. Ahmed Foley is here to see...
Axel Foley. Axel.
Axel. Foley is here to see her. He's an old acquaintance. Donnie, cover this up. It's like the breast of a dog to scrub for the customer. It's not sexy. It's animal.
No, it's not sexy.
Yeah, but played by Bronson Pickle, Serge, a gallery employee from an unnamed European country. As you know, Bronson Pickle will go on to play the role of Balky on Perfect Strangers, probably his biggest role, a similar character, and use a variation of his Serge character signature line, "Don't be stupid." Every time he was asked something, he would reply, "Of course I do," or "Don't be ridiculous." Bronson Pickle's got Serge's accent and mannerisms from a female makeup crew member he worked with on an earlier project. Pickle said, "She always wore sunglasses while doing my makeup, and I always ask her, 'How can you even tell that what you're doing? You've got sunglasses on.' And she would just brush my hand away with a limp arm, saying, 'Don't be stupid. I know what I'm doing.'" I just decided to channel her, and while she wasn't very friendly, I knew Serge needed to be friendly and warm. So that likable side was me, but the rest was my makeup lady, Lily. And I did that for Marty Brest, our director, and he just loved it. Also, the funny thing about this is this film has a lot of production issues, and Pickled, who was doing this, was thinking about leaving altogether. And he wasn't a well-known actor this time, which is kind of crazy that it was like one of his big breaks, and he was deciding to leave, but eventually, wrote it out for this film, and he becomes like a memorable character like throughout the series.
So that's very, again, he's awesome in True Romance. He's great in there. But again, it's another one of those scenes that I think, like, in other movies, the side guy that only shows up for a little bit to gain some laughs, and gather some laughs into the production is definitely did a good job at that.
Yeah, and I really, really love this back and forth with Eddie Murphy here.
I see you look at this space.
Yeah, I was wondering how much something like this went for.
$130,000. Get the fuck out of here! No, I cannot. It's serious because it's very important space.
Like his character is just awesome. Originally, two men were supposed to be working in the art gallery, which there are. You see another guy come over and he says that you're wearing it's not sexy like animal. When director heard Bronson Pickle's surge impersonation, he thought it was so hysterical that he scaled back the other part to give him more time on the screen. The second actor again shows up with his shirt collar wide open and Serge comments on it. So it sucks for that guy, but Bronson got most of the screen time. Is it his best role? I don't know. I like Balky, even though I really like Perfect Strangers. I mean, Balky was funny. They sang the Dance of Joy. But what do you think, Tone? Is that his best role?
He's even a very, 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 very small role in this Martin Scorsese movie called After Hours. He's in a little, which I like him in True Romance. That's what I would go in as his best role, but that's because he just acts really ridiculous because he's on the phone with the one guy and he's like, you want me to give him a blow? That whole scene in that, but he's good though. He was with David Duchovny on Californication too, where he was he got stuck at a glory hole. I mean, he's got some really good roles that it's hard to distinguish
He's also in Risky Business too. He's good
in that too. I totally forgot about that. See, I'm glad you brought that up.
Good character actor.
Yes.
So as we go from here, he meets with Jenny. She tells him who Mikey has been working for. He's been working for Victor Maitland, a art dealer, and Axel goes to see him. When we go see Axel meeting Victor, he begins asking questions about Mikey, to which Victor just responds with small little lines, but nothing really major, and then tells him isn't these questions an authority supposed to be asking, and then calls his goons to basically take him out. And they proceed to throw him out the window of his own building, which I thought was hilarious. And Axel's the one who ends up getting arrested, and he responds with this:
"Disturbing the peace, I got thrown out of a window. What's the fucking charge for getting pushed out of a moving car, huh? Jaywalking?"
Yeah, and he gets pulled out. They drive him in the car, and I always love the fact when he's complimenting them on their car.
This is the cleanest and nicest police car I've ever been in my life. This thing's nice in my apartment.
Again, they're trying to show the difference between Detroit and Beverly Hills. How Beverly Hills is all this spotty, clean, squeaky clean places. Detroit's run down. I guess, like Tony, you said earlier, trying to build that difference between the two towns and atmospheres. When they arrive at the Beverly Hills police station, the Beverly Hills police did not provide access to their headquarters. So Martin Brest and staff built a set that will look like the exact opposite of the Detroit police station, which is why it's very nice. Like private security for all rich people. The set was influenced by Brest's original concept designs for NORAD seen in war games. He recycled his unused work because he felt he spent too much time on it to never use it. That's why it looks so nice. Also, in the jail cell, there is a phone. And he even comments, I never see a jail cell with a phone in it. He's charged with disturbing the peace, as we mentioned earlier, and he has his first introduction with detectives Taggart and Rosewood. And this is what happens.
We're more likely to believe an important local businessman than a foul-mouthed jerk from out of town.
Foul-mouthed? Fuck you, man.
To which results in Taggart punching him in the stomach. Lieutenant Bogomil, who played by Ronnie Cox, runs over and asks Foley if he wants to file charges, to which he says, no, cops don't file charges on other cops. So you can see he's doing by the cop code, to where she earns a little bit of respect from Taggart and is released on bail. He's still charged, which I think is pretty funny, and released on bail. During this time, he's picked up by Jenny, who bails him out, and they are followed by the police at nighttime. Now, Tom, the crazy thing about these nighttime scenes is that Beverly Hills did not allow filming in streets after 10:30 p.m. So most of these scenes that are shot at night that are supposed to represent Beverly Hills are actually shot in Pasadena, California, which is pretty crazy. And also,
Okay.
I forgot to mention during the opening scene of Growing to Beverly Hills, you see him show like the palm trees. That was a homage to Beverly Hills Billies.
Oh, that's cool.
So they wanted to have a little homage there. I don't know how many people picked that up, but I just found that out reading notes. um, so as they're followed, he knows they're outside. He brings Jenny up to his room. The cops, Rosewood and Taggart, are in their car outside. He orders some food service for them from room service, some food from room service for them. I couldn't tongue tied there. To where he brings them like salmon and something else like perch. To where Bronson Pickled is like really excited. Not Bronson Pickled. Judge Reinhardt's really excited about this, and Taggart's very upset, saying, "Get that stuff away." And during this time, he goes and asks this gentleman, who you might recognize, about some bananas.
I need a couple of bananas. How much are they?
Well, the buffet plate is $12.50. You get peaches, plums, oranges, and bananas.
Well, all I need is a couple of bananas.
Shh. Go ahead, take those bananas.
That character is named Banana Man in the casting roll call, and that is Damon Wayans' first, appearance in film. So this is his film debut. Foley uses those bananas to stuff the tailpipe of the car of the police officers. So when he drives away, they try to chase him, and the car dies out. Now, Martin Brest mentions in the originally it was supposed to be a potato and not a banana. And the scene involving Axel sneaking into the kitchen of the hotel to get a potato was intended. Due to budget and scheduling issues, the scene couldn't be shot. Murphy had to grab something that was easy accessible in a location that was already lit and ready to shoot. It was Eddie Murphy's idea to get Damon Wayans in as the guy working the buffet. Wayans is credited in the film as Banana Man, as I mentioned. So this is another thing of how, if you think about comedians, they always get other comedians to do small roles in their film. Rodney Dangerfield had Sam Kinison in his film Back to School. Even Damon Wayans did a little thing with Bernie Mac in Mo Money. Bernie Mac plays a very small role as one of the guys who's letting people in the club they go to. He's just a guy who lets a person in the club, but it gave him a role. And then eventually Bernie Mac went on to do Friday, and then
Mr. 3000.
Yeah, Mr. 3000, another of your classic films. But just like little things of how comedians are trying to fit other comedians in those roles to get them a little bit more exposure. Sandler's known for that as well with Norm Macdonald, and his friends, getting his friends in there. But yeah, it's kind of cool how Murphy got probably Wayne's big start on the film circuit, which is kind of cool. We then cut to him and Jenny going to a warehouse where they find coffee grounds and guys opening a crate where we see the German bonds being taken out. What do you think about this whole, thing, Tone? Where I think I love this film, but I think some of the stuff that was too out in the open was kind of just too out in the open. You know what I mean? It's kind of unrealistic. But I guess I have to put that out of more suspend my belief for this. What do you think?
Well, yes. I mean, I think Roadhouse, a lot of my favorite movies. There's a scene earlier when he first goes to the police station where the captain's talking, and when he turns his back to the camera, he's still talking, but you can clearly tell his face isn't moving anymore. It's 80s out, you know what I mean? Coffee grounds, that whole thing. But I think that's what makes it kind of that cheesy 80s-ness, is the unbelievableness to it. But, I don't know. Someone might look at it differently.
Yeah. And it's cookie time. It's cookie time.
There's real quick. There's one thing that Troop Beverly Hills has that this movie doesn't have, and that's Coach Craig T. Nelson from Poltergeist. He is in Troop Beverly Hills.
Yeah. So what Tony's talking about is in the comments, Brian said, "Serious question: better film, Beverly Hills Cop or Troop Beverly Hills?" To which this person named Katie responded, "Both movies are amazing and iconic in their own ways. Would be a great double feature."
And a shout out to Katie really quick. If it wasn't for her, I never would have seen Troop Beverly Hills, and now I've seen it like 8, 9 times. It's actually not a bad movie. Not better, but it's definitely really good. It's good for its own thing.
Now you got me thinking about Troop Beverly Hills. So after they see the coffee and they see the German bonds, they leave, and basically he tells Jenny, "I'm gonna go to this Bonds place." It's a Bonds warehouse. She takes him to. There, they go. He's gonna go in. He tells Jenny to go home. During this, Taggart and Rosewood are getting reprimanded for losing him, and they're told not to lose him again. So they go back to the hotel to wait for him. While this is going on, Foley is going in the bond warehouse to where he asks a guy out of the plain blue, "Is your supervisor here?" And he's like, "Yeah, he's here." But before that, he asks them, "Do you have a match?" And the guy says, "There's no smoking in here." He's like, "Well, I'm gonna do it for outside." And the guy hands him a match, like not knowing who he is. And then he shows him his badge and says, "Is your supervisor here?" And that scene makes me laugh because he goes and gets all the documents from there to the point where he's in the office and one of the employees tells him, "Aren't we supposed to have a warrant for this?" He's like, "Is that your red Porsche outside? Do you want the IRS up your ass?" Like, and the guy basically gets scared to the point where he's like, "Oh, no, we're not gonna have a problem. You'll get everything you want, sir. Everything you want." Like, what'd you think of that whole scene, Tone?
Actually, that is one of the ones earlier. Is that I laughed a lot at because it's ridiculous. Of course, like it's again that would never happen, but it's too cheesy and funny not to like laugh when he's like, "Oh, you gave me a match," just the whole entire thing, doing everything that he's not supposed to do, but they're doing it, which is kind of the humor in it.
Yeah, it's a very hilarious scene. And another great scene too, that while he's doing this, they cut back to Rosewood and Taggart. And Rosewood by Judge Reinhold is hilarious because he's such a dork and he's talking to him about this thing about red meat.
Wow. It says here that by the time the average American is 50, he's got 5 pounds of undigested red meat in his bowels.
Why are you telling me this? What makes you think I have any interest in that at all?
Well, you eat a lot of red meat.
And he also tells him later on, like, "I see you drink a lot of coffee. Maybe that's why you're so uneasy." Like, to cast the roles of Rosewood and Taggart, the director paired up various finalists and asked them to do some improvisation to get a feel for their chemistry. He paired up Judge Reinhold and John Ashton and gave them the following direction: "You are a middle-aged couple, married for years. You are having a conversation on an average evening." Reinhold immediately picked up a nearby magazine and the two improvised the 5 pounds of red meat in the bowels bit, almost exactly as it was eventually appeared in the film. That little like back and forth between them cracks you up. And like they have another one later in the film that we'll get to, but just like their whole chemistry was awesome in the film. Like great supporting characters for this whole film to go with Murphy. Murphy comes back. He goes into their back seat, which is what our great thumbnail is based off, is him actually sneaking into their back seat while they're talking. And Rosewood tells him, "Thank you for the sandwich," to where Eddie Murphy to where Taggart goes, "He was messing with us." And he's like, no, I was trying to be a good cop. And he tells them that they should go for a drink. Either they follow him and get lost, or they just go there for a drink. He knows a great spot. And he takes them to a strip club. So in the strip club, there's a song called "Nasty Girl," which plays during the strip club scene. And it was recommended by the real stripper who's in that scene named Mouse. This dancer was evidently a legendary stripper, and the song played in this scene by Vanity 6 was the actual song she used to dance to. But during this scene, we see two strange gentlemen come in with trench coats. And Tony, what does he say about the trench coats?
He goes, "It's awfully, should they be wearing trench coats at the middle of summer?" Right along, something along those lines.
Yeah, to where he tells Taggart to go to the guy away from the bar, and he'll go talk to the guy at the bar. And my favorite part is when he goes up to the guy at the bar. He's like, "Philip, give me a kiss. I haven't seen you in a while." And the guy pushes him away, pulls out a shotgun. to
Well,
where
like even when John Aston, he
yeah.
like gets up from his seat and he's like, I'm gonna get a little bit closer. And he goes and stands over there and he looks totally like out of ordinary trying to check out that
the way he
guy.
bends
Like,
over, the way he bends over on the thing. Yeah, it's his mannerisms are pretty funny too. But then Murphy disarms the first guy, Ashton puts the gun to the other guy. Rosewood comes up to the first guy that Murphy had disarmed, points a gun to him and says, "You're under arrest." To which Eddie Murphy's character Axel Foley responds, "Way to go, Rosewood. You're some kind of cop." They then go to the police station to where they're trying to get this story, and they come up with this.
I'm still freaked out by it. You must have a sixth sense. I don't know what you teach these fellows, but they're not just regular cops, okay? They're super cops. And the only thing missing on these guys are capes.
Eddie Murphy gives a whole super cop spiel to their lieutenant, who eventually is found out of the truth as Taggart tells him the truth. A lot of as you notice throughout this film, these guys are really pushed. They abide by a law to the T and they don't lie, so they're goody two shoes. But the funny thing about this whole improv scene of super cops was that Eddie Murphy became very tired during police station sequences of this film. The crew had offered him coffee, and Eddie Murphy refused to drink it because he doesn't take drugs of any kind. Eddie Murphy is very, very anti any stimulant, anything. Eventually, he relented and took some small sips of the coffee to stay awake. He became very energized and ad-libbed the whole super cop scene. And in that scene, when he's ad-libbing, John Ashton could not stop laughing at what he was saying. So if you notice, he has his face like this and he's pinching it to prevent himself from laughing. And if you look at Eddie Murphy's eyes, they're like twitching back and forth because he's hopped up on caffeine, which I thought was hilarious. But that's a great little scene about the super cops. Eddie Murphy, John Ashton, and Judge Reinhold improvised most of their comedic lines for this film. Literally hundreds of takes were ruined by the cast members, actors, or the director laughing during the shoot. During the super cops monologue, Ashton is pinching his face, like I mentioned, and looking down in apparent frustration. He's actually laughing. And Reinhold puts his hand in his pocket and pinched his thigh really hard, trying to prevent himself from laughing. So there was a lot of fun for this film in terms of improvisation, which I thought was pretty hilarious. After this, after they're told to escort him back, let him go back to his hotel. They are told that they are off the case, and that is Taggart and Rosewood, and two new detectives who made fun of Rosewood earlier with the banana sunglasses. Foster and Detective McCabe are now cast. Eddie Murphy introduces them and welcomes them with a nice little coffee and donuts from the room service in the morning, which I thought was hilarious. They then drive over to a house which Foley is looking at, and they tell him,
"We're not going to fall for a banana in the tailpipe."
You're not gonna fall for the banana in the tailpipe?
It should be more natural, brother. It should flow out like this.
Look, man, I ain't falling for no banana in my tailpipe.
It got a lot of Donkey from Shrek there, which made me laugh. But he tells them, so they sent the second team, huh? He's like, we're the first team. He eventually loses them through his top light, which is even more funnier. And he goes to a club after he followed Victor from his house to this club. And he mentions him being Ramon to the maitre d' and tells him that he wants to tell Mr. Victor that he has a disease and he better go see a doctor or some of his parts are going to drop off. To which the maitre d' tells him, you should tell him that yourself. One of my favorite parts of this whole sequence, Tone, is when he actually pulls up to the place and in his crappy car, and he tells the valet, make sure you park this in a different spot because all this shit happened here the last time, which is hilarious. It's an ongoing thing in the film that his car is constantly made fun of because it's so crappy, but that's like a nice little jab at himself in there. What'd you think of this whole sequence of the Ramon and the driving to the special club?
That car scene is hilarious, like you just said, when he gets out of the car and he says that. I don't know if he wrote that in there himself to say, park this somewhere else because this all happened. Eddie Murphy can just do a lot of different things, humorous wise, different. I like his vocal delivery, different styles. Like he can change it and go, like you said, you could hear some Donkey in there. You hear a lot of different performances in this one.
Yeah, and eventually he gets into a fight with Zach there, who tries to attack him. He throws him on the floor, like basically shrugs him off like nothing. Um, he is eventually arrested again and brought in, and this is where he kind of gets the lowdown to the police officers there. He talks to the lieutenant, telling them about Victor, telling them what he was really doing, telling them about the coffee grounds. And this is where we learn why the coffee grounds are so significant, because they can be used to hide the scent of drugs in crates. And as Foley tells them, the crates are coming in, they're being taken out before they go to customs, and they're basically being put there. So the bonds and drugs are being put through there and removed before they go through customs checks. So he's paying somebody there to do so. And the police lieutenant basically tells him, "Well, we can't do much. If you would have found drugs, that'd have been great. But since you didn't, we can't have a warrant. We have to do it by the book." And he's like, "No, there's a way." He's like, "No, we do everything by the book," which I said that the police at Beverly Hills are very, very by the book and goody two shoes. At this time, we see the police chief walk in, Police Chief Hubbard, and he's carrying this roll of papers. And the funny thing is that the roll of papers that he brings in are some of the rolled up sheets of paper that were reworked scripts for the movie, and they were ones that the character that played the actor who played Chief Hubbard had to memorize and rehearse only minutes before the shooting started. So it was rewritten so many times he had to actually have his lines in his hand. He tells them to take Foley to the city limits. Foley convinces Judge Reinhardt's character Rosewood to take him to Jenny's. But before they go there, we find that Victor is actually at Jenny's art studio and asking about Foley, to which she lies and says that he hasn't been there but only once, and they are old friends. He then meets up with Foley and he with also Rosewood at her shop, and we find out that Victor has a warehouse that they went to earlier, and he wants to go back there. And he tries to convince Rosewood to do so. But we have another funny scene from Serge, who asks him this.
You want to get a lemon twist?
Yeah, sure, if it's no bother.
No, don't be stupid.
And that's in response to when Foley tells Serge to get Rosewood a cappuccino. And he's like, "Do you want a little lemon twist?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, sure." Like I said, that whole Serge character cracks me up. They eventually go to the warehouse where they find drugs and coffee as expected. Rosewood waits outside because he can't go inside without a warrant. It will throw everything will be admissible in court, to which they explain. There, they are actually caught by Victor and his henchman, Zach, as well as a couple others. This is when they say welcome to the party to him. And they tell her, Victor tells them to take Jenny to his car, to where Foley responds, "Don't worry about me. We got cocaine and coffee. We're going to party tonight." Just that whole scene. You have Michael Champion in this scene, Tone. And the funny thing is, Michael Champion, who plays a henchman here, was actually a henchman of Cox in Total Recall.
Yes.
Of Michael Ironside.
Yes.
So you have him in here as twice. So you have two people who like kind of mixing up in the films here. You have Total Recall with Champion, and then you also have Russo and Reinhold from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Different films, different roles. But then we see the rescuing of Foley by Rosewood as he goes and shoots the two goons that are beating him up, and they eventually make their way back to Victor's house. So what'd you think of this whole warehouse, the lemon twist, the whole rescuing of Foley scenes, Tone?
Again, it shows that, again, like, that's the thing why I think the Axel Foley characters, because there's times where he seems like he can get serious pretty quickly. Like, he's dropping jokes, but when they're in there and they're going to mess with her and they're taking her away or whatever, he isn't like cracking jokes anymore. He's serious. And even when they're pointing the gun at him, or when he's pointing the gun at him in there, he doesn't look scared. He isn't like cracking jokes either, like in a nervous way, that's why I think he's got a cool confidence to him too.
Yeah, and it's kind of that cool thing how the character switches from the kind of like dorky to like when there's something that's gotta go on, and dude, puts it in his big boy pants and gets things done.
Yep. Yep.
Eventually, they go to Victor's house, as mentioned. And the cool thing is when they're trying to find where Rosewood is and Foley, they are using a tracking system for the car. Now, when they're doing this didn't exist. It was a satellite tracking system. It didn't exist at the time. It was actually just made up to advance the plot of the movie, but it was invented later. The predecessor to the modern day global positioning system, or GPS, as we call it, was actually kind of shown as, I guess, predicted in this film. Some people say we have a big gunfight at the mansion as Taggart joins, and they convince him to go inside and save Jenny. Uh, the mansion that was used in this shootout between Foley and Maitland is the former Harold Lloyd estate in Beverly Hills, is the same mansion seen in the final shootout between Matrix and Arias and Commando.
Ooh.
Coincidentally, both Foley and Matrix were trying to rescue somebody named Jenny in that mansion in their respective films. And we see a funny little thing between Rosewood and Taggart, either being shot at by the bad guys.
You know what I keep thinking about? You know the end of Butch Cassidy? Redford and Newman are almost out of ammunition. And the whole Bolivian army is out in front of this little hut. Billy, I'm gonna make you pay for this.
Just their whole chemistry between the two is excellent. We eventually see the death of Zach as he's shot by Foley. Foley is then shot, but he eventually kills Victor along with the lieutenant who come and they like blast that dude.
Oh, they do.
Like, he gets lit up like 30 shots. They blast him away. The lieutenant Bogomil sticks up for Foley with the chief, and is all his story of saying Foley was actually working with the police at the time. To the chief of police is also collaborated by Taggart, so they are lying to protect him. Foley then says, "Can you help me out with my job in Detroit by telling my inspector that I was doing good out here?" And he even threatens to opening up a private eye service in Beverly Hills if he doesn't. To where the lieutenant laughs and said, "Yeah, I'll take care of you." And we cut back to the hotel of him checking out, which is picked up. The bill is picked up by the Beverly Police Department. The cool thing is that the person that's actually checking him out is actually the director of the
Oh.
film. Martin Brest is the person checking him out. We then see that he wants 2 robes, which one he gives to Rosewood, the other one he tries to give to Taggart, who says, "No, you keep it." And he's like, "No, I already got 3 in my bag." They were $95 a piece for those robes. And then we find out they all went to get a drink at the end of the film. So this film was actually rather short, an hour and 35 minutes runtime, shorter than most films that we see today. And we all wrap it up to a happy day to more Patti LaBelle to close us out. So what do you think of the film altogether, Tom?
I think it's again, it's a good. It's very quick. It's quick. It's a minute. It's an hour and a half. It's not heavy. It's Eddie cracking jokes. Again, it's as far as like cop movies go, comedic cop movies go. I mean, you got to put it in the top 3. I think. It's another different movie. I mean, it's not like 48 Hours. It's not like Coming to America. It's not like Trading Places. It's different. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I do too. I really do. It's one, it screams 80s, but it's something different. Like
Yeah.
something that's totally different than it should have been. You have a lead African American actor doing this, which is awesome.
Like some of my current students, I could see me putting it on and them laughing hard at some of the jokes because they still hold up. Like it's like especially Eddie's humor, yeah, even though it is 80s, I think it still holds up today.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, like I said, having a lead African American actor. Now, Eddie Murphy does make a joke in the film about being African American with the Michael Jackson story bit in there, but David Brest really wanted to stray away from that, from like race humor in this film, because he wanted to just be solely to be you looking at Eddie being Eddie and how great Eddie is. He wanted to be the focus, that Eddie Murphy is awesome, which is kind of interesting for him to think that way. So when Stallone dropped out, he made it a point to make sure that that was his main focus, of Eddie showing his talents and how great he is, not having to use those jokes in there. I think he did a very good job. I mean, the movie, of course, we'll get into the reception right now, but it did pretty well. Actually, let's just go straight into the reception. We'll go straight from there.
You know that fat cocksucker says I look like the Shah of Iran?
Who does? Tony. I never got that at all.
The budget of the film was $13 million, Tony, and it made a worldwide box office of $316 million worldwide. That's crazy. It is the third highest grossing rated R film behind The Exorcist and The Godfather. It held the domestic record for $234 million for a rated R film before it was broken by The Matrix Reloaded 20 years later. This is the first film to be released to over 2,000 theaters at the time in the United States. It was a groundbreaking thing there. And this is also the first of 7 Eddie Murphy films in a row to open at #1 at the box office. The completed movie made such an impression on Paramount executives that they committed to a sequel moments after the first private executive screening of the completed film. That's when Frank Mancuso Jr. saw the opening sequence when the film was screened, and the rest of the top studio executives were with him. He told Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, "This movie will be bigger than Ghostbusters. Let's commit to working on sequels right away." That's pretty crazy. On review website Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 83% from 53 critics with an average of 7.3 out of 10. Janet Maslin of the New York Times wrote, "Beverly Hills Cop finds Eddie Murphy doing what he does best, playing the shrewdest, hippest, fast-talking underdog in a rich man's world. Eddie Murphy knows exactly what he's doing, and he wins at every turn." Richard Schenkel of the Time Magazine wrote that Eddie Murphy exuded the kind of cheeky, cocky charm that's been missing from the screen since Cagney was a pup, snarling his way out of the ghetto. Axel Foley became Murphy's signature role and is ranked number 78 on Empire Magazine's list of 100 the 100 greatest movie characters of all time. Entertainment Weekly magazine ranked Beverly Hills Cop as a third best comedy of the last 25 years. And according to Christopher Hitchens, the British novelist and poet Kingsley Amis considered the film a flawless masterpiece. John Simon of the National Review Board called Beverly Hills Cop a truly contemptible film. In 2003, the film was picked by the New York Times as one of the 1,000 best films ever made. This film also was nominated for an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay, and it won a Grammy for Best Score Soundtrack. It went on to spawn 3 sequels, Beverly Hills Cop 2 and Beverly Hills Cop 3, and 2024's Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. That's a lot of information I gave you there, Tone. There are no fan theories because this film doesn't really leave doors open for fan theories. But are there any final thoughts on all that stuff I gave you?
I mean, honestly, a really good wrap up. I spend so much time looking at budgets of how much something costs and how much it made. And now you can see why Don Simpson got to do some of those crazy things that he got to do as the 80s got to go on, because he made some good money off this movie. But all around, just a great John Astin is awesome. Another actor that just definitely doesn't get sometimes the praise he deserves. And I'm kind of excited to see him in this new one, to see what's going on with him. So it should be exciting.
Yeah, he's also in Little Big League.
Oh, he sure is. And Midnight Run. He's really good in Midnight Run.
Yes, another great character actor. Like I said, this movie basically was strapping a rocket to Eddie Murphy.
Yep.
He went to the moon. He showed like I said, it was just the first of 7 top films. And then we get the other classics, Coming to America, Trading Places, 48 Hours, another 48 Hours, The Golden Child. All these films are coming out with him there. He just, blew up. And Eddie Murphy, was the man of the 80s and early 90s. Sure. So this just shows where it started and now how far he's come. Excellent film. If you haven't seen it, please check it out. I know we went into detail about the scenes, but it's also great witnessing them for yourself as you watch them, as we talk about them. Then you can come back and listen to us. But yeah, one of my favorite films. Love Eddie Murphy. I love this film. It still holds up to today, even though it was made over 31 years ago. We're Some Kind of Wonderful.
I know. That's a good movie.
There was a Money Key. Yeah, that was a good movie too. But with that is the end of our deep dive into Beverly Hills Cop. Next week there will be no show. I'll be out of town, but we will be releasing some stuff this week. So be sure to check out the YouTube, and make sure to check out for our stuff for our show for coming soon. I didn't play a song because we don't have anything to play.
No, I just thought you were talking about what's coming, so I just put it up there.
Yeah. Also, we have Tony with the Hookup on Music on Wednesday, doing his live stuff. Tony, what you got for this week?
This week, I've been actually looking at a couple different things. There's just yesterday, an announcement came and broke that the Black Keys canceled their whole tour. Rumors are because of low ticket sales, because they decided to play huge arenas and maybe they weren't big enough for huge arenas. And this isn't the first time it's happened with bands kind of maybe getting too big. Are they big enough really to play these venues? That's one of many stories that will be crossing the wire on Wednesday. So please tune in.
Yeah. Also, I know J-Lo canceled a lot of stuff because she wasn't selling out as well.
Yeah, that's another one too. And also on Tuesday, we got a drafty pod, which is going to be basketball, NBA draft, because of the amazing playoffs that have been happening. Go Indiana Pacers, even though they're not going to win.
King Ass will be on that along with friend of the show, Kevin, who's hilarious. So tune in for that one. He's pretty funny. For a drafty pod at 8:00 on Tuesday. So that's pretty much our housekeeping. We have 2 new shirts, of course, the Showley fans at the Sadistic Penguin Studios, and also the Keelan Steve Stone shirt, Enjoying the Ride. So be sure to check those out, pick those up if you want them. With that, pretty much let's go into the Sugar Baggy soundtrack pick of the week. Okay, Tom?
Let's do it.
Okay, let me just find you here. The Sugar Baggy soundtrack pick of the week.
It's party time!
Rock and roll will never die. At least not this Halloween.
All right. Tonight, I picked this movie from 1986 called Trick or Treat. It is a pretty much movie that centers on an outcast metalhead teenager who is haunted by the ghost of his rock hero. It is the directorial debut of one amazing actor, Charles Martin Smith. If you are not familiar with him, he has been in lots of different things like The Untouchables, Deep Impact, The Buddy Holly Story, lots of stuff. But he directs this movie, and honestly, I remember my cousin showing me this like in the very early 90s. This soundtrack is by this band called Fastway. Guitarist was from Motorhead, and lead singer used to be the singer of this band is now the singer of Flogging Molly, which is a ska type band. And but this movie is great. The movie really quickly just stars a little character actor you may be familiar with, Mark Price. He was on Family Ties. He played Skippy. But the movie itself is great because it's got Ozzy in it. It's got, as you heard there at the beginning, Gene Simmons playing a DJ. But the soundtrack, it's musically, and it's actually, honestly, it's not, to me, and usually I can say when something's pretty cheesy, it's actually not, doesn't feel cheesy. It's actually a really awesome movie. So check it out.
Yeah, it's a pretty good throwback, man. I mean, I think of Trick or Treat. I think of a Trick or Treat with Sam from
the
like the epilogue of Stories. But that's another good one too.
That's what I always think of too, and that's why I have to keep putting in 1986.
Brian put Skippy Funky Handling, which is why didn't Nick from Family Ties get any movies? Even Brian Boso got. I don't know. Maybe we should do some research on that one, Tone. See if
next time
why Nick getting any stories. But that's our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you guys have a great Memorial Day weekend. Like I said, there will be no show next week, but be sure to check out the Drafty Pod on Tuesday and the Hookup on Music on Wednesday. And with that, everyone, we will be seeing you next week. Take it easy.
Take care.
Oh, 2 weeks. Take it easy.
Thanks for listening to the At the Show podcast, a Sadistic Penguin Studios production.
Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
Maybe we could build a fire, sing a couple of songs, huh? Why don't we try that?